between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates. Welcome, one and all, to the VRRC Nascar Special Event, Round 3. And I bet you're expecting me to say that we're at Bristol. Well, you'd be mistaken, and you'd be probably saddened, unfortunately. No, the mod wasn't quite working to our high specifications and standards here at VRRC, so we've decided to shoot on over to the Michigan International Speedway. There are the new graphics with the new logo for Michigan, and as you can see, it is not only the third round, but it is the final round of the fun special events that we've got here for the last 3 weeks before we head on to our first serious championship, the GTV3s. But more on that later in the broadcast. Let's introduce the broadcast team to start with. My name is Jack Oliphant. I am joined, well, I'd say pretty usually now, you've been here for the last 3 weeks, by Lewis Edwards, our broadcaster and my co-commentator for the evening. How are we, Lewis?
I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to this race this evening. I did the practice race that a few of us did on Monday, and the action was absolutely spectacular. It was quite similar to Auto Club, but with a little bit more side-by-side action and a little bit less crashes into the wall. So hopefully we're going to have an absolutely mega race. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep, almost as spectacular as that windswept hair, Lewis, and your lovely picture there. It's what a delight. And joining me, as per usual, on VRRC, but this time in the car as well, is Andy McEwan. And Andy's in the commentary box for us while he's just going out there and qualifying. Andy, how are we doing, and are you excited?
I'm very excited. This is going to be a good race. Like Lewis said, Michigan is think of it like Auto Club on steroids. I think that's the best way to picture Michigan. It's fast, it's wide, it's going to produce some really good racing. And we made a few tweaks to the track actually this week to try and just add to the challenge. We've reduced the grip level. The track's going to rubber in as we go through the night, and that I think is going to add an extra dimension to the races. And of course, it's the final round of the championship. So by the end of the night, someone will be taking home that winner's trophy.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And we can be able to bring up the championship just after we go through what happened last time out at Auto Club. And there we are. It was Mr. Ethan Hill, a very popular race winner, took home the top step of the podium. Nicky Taylor came in second place, with Joel Lask ended up in third. And I have to say, it was one of the most dramatic finishes to a race that we've ever seen on VRRC. Apparently, that's fairly usual for NASCAR, which makes me sort of, it whets the appetite for this third and final round. And Andy, you were the driver. I don't want to rub it in here, but you were leading for 95% of this race, were you? And were you sort of going into that last 5%, those last couple of laps, fearing the worst, knowing exactly what can happen in NASCAR?
Yeah, I mean, I think I lived the true NASCAR experience last week. Like you said, I feel like I had the fastest car. I was driving well. I put myself in good positions and ended up 6th or 7th by the end of it, because that's just the way that NASCAR works. It's so unpredictable. You're so reliant on what other people do around you. And I think that's the big thing that most drivers have taken away from these 3 weeks of racing. You've kind of got to look after each other. You've got to react to what everyone's doing around you. And yeah, unfortunately, I just couldn't get myself quite in the right place at the right time on that final lap. But I'm hoping to take what I learned from that and apply it here tonight, because I do think we'll have a very similar kind of racing. It's definitely going to come down to what happens in that last lap or two of the race. And hopefully this time I'll get it right.
Well, like you said, it is very much like an Auto Club, isn't it? And if you were quick round there, well, we expect you to be quick round here, Andy. No pressure, absolutely none whatsoever. Right, going into the championship then, we've obviously only had 2 rounds. We're going into the championship finale, but you can see that Nicky Taylor is on top. Carl Felvis, his HFT teammate, is 4 points behind him. Joel Lask is 8 points behind him. Ethan Hill is 10 points behind him. As you can tell, it's very, very close. Oliver Gibson in 5th place, just pipping ahead of Andy McEwan, obviously, who we've just had a chat to. He's in 6th on joint points, actually. And it says 14 back. I can actually tell you that they are 30 points. Josh Martin is in 7th. Eric Axelson in 8th place. Rhys Bell and Paul Laramie round out the top 10. Other drivers that we have got involved, obviously, in this championship: John Jones, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Andy Carroll, Paolo Tampera, Rich Hayden himself, who hasn't had much luck at all in the first 2 rounds, Simon Thorpe, Nathan Blank, Kenny Preston, Stuart Vickers. But, Lewis, it's very, very tight at the top. We're used to seeing that at VRRC. You could argue there's only 2 rounds. This is normally not even halfway through one of our championships. But realistically, we've got Nicky Taylor back with us, even though we thought he was going to miss this week. Is he the favourite?
I think it's hard to say. With NASCAR being so close, we're currently just in qualifying at the moment. And if you go all the way down to 11th place, there's still only 2/10 covering that top 11 places, which is now top 12 as Andy's popped it up into 7th place. It's just so close, it's hard to tell who's going to find those milliseconds in qualifying, who's going to nail the toe, who's going to, as Andy has nailed it on that lap as he goes to pole position at the moment, but who is going to nail the lap at the end of qualifying when the track is at its grippiest. And then we've still got 40 minutes to sort that order all out again. Anything can happen. And I think those without weight might be feeling more confident, as it does tend to wear the tyres a bit more here than on the other 2 tracks we've been to. I think those with weight might feel a bit more confident, but those with the most weight would be Kyle and Nicky, who are first and second. So I think it's definitely all to play for still.
Yes, it was all looking very exciting, wasn't it, when, as you said, the top 12 were separated by about 2/10 of a second. Then Andy went and ruined it all, and he also ruined my nice lead into the fact that we were going to go for a track guide, because he's just gone into the pit. But we'll give him 30 seconds, and then we'll put him under pressure to do it whilst talking at the same time. Oliver Gibson, who, remember, is tied on points with Andy, 14 points behind our leader, Nicky Taylor, is just jumped up to 2nd place as well, almost as quick as Andy's gone within a 10th. And as you can start to see exactly what Lewis and Andy were talking about, the track is starting to rubber in. We're getting those faster times starting to tumble. Eric Axelson. Eric's an interesting one, isn't he, Lewis? Because he hasn't really performed as high as we're used to seeing him in the VRRC Championships here in NASCAR. Maybe a bit of a learning curve for him.
Yeah, I think the main difficulty for Eric was in Daytona. He had an incident with somebody, I can't remember who it was, but that set him on the back foot quite considerably. And then he also carries a lot of ballast due to being so quick in our regular championships on a consistent basis. So he's right there on a lot of weight already. So he found making that lack of points up quite difficult in round 2. But the thing that I find quite interesting is I would have put Eric and Josh as 2 of the favourites, but I'd say they've both had, Josh had an incident last weekend, and Eric had an incident in round 1, so I think it's quite representative of their pace, given a third of their championship has been wrecked by an incident with another car, their fault or not. But I think Josh has just popped up into 4th and Eric's in 6th, and I think the teamwork might be able to bring them a bit closer in this race, hopefully.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see, but they're certainly under pressure, even if this is a fun championship. And one driver who is very much under pressure, actually, is our own Andy McEwan, because Joel Lask has only gone and equalled his time to within 1,000th of a second. Andy, we're going to start distracting you. I know you wanted to be distracted earlier in the session, but here we are. I've failed you. Talk us through a lap here in Michigan.
Not a problem. Yeah, business starting to pick up out here now, actually. That track, you can really feel it rubbering in. It's not quite possible to go flat out through the corners at the start of the sessions when the track's really dirty and really low grip. But once you've run about 5 or 6 laps, it really starts to grip up. You start to find a lot of speed. So I'm going to do a couple of laps here because there are a couple of different ways of attacking the Michigan International Speedway, because there is a lot of grip around the whole track. The traditional way is to come right down into the bottom of the track like this, take the shortest way around the course, and then come back out towards the wall on corner exit. Now this circuit is a little bit different to Auto Club in that it has what we call progressive banking. So right down at the bottom of the track, there's a little bit less banking than at the top. You'll see the transition just there as I go down onto the flatter bit, and just there as I come back up onto the banked bit. That means that actually, in my experience, running right round the bottom of the track isn't really the fastest way to go. What you want is to find a bit where there's plenty of banking, and that will allow you more grip and more mid-corner speed. So the line that I like to take is a little bit like this. You come down just to the top of that seam, straddle the seam halfway through the corner. That helps rotate the car in much the same way as running over a curb would on a road course. You put 2 wheels upon the curb, that sort of makes the car a little bit unsettled and helps the rotation. I'll do it again here through turns 3 and 4. Turn down, straddle that seam, get the left side tyres below it. Instantly the front of the car starts to hook up, and you can keep that right foot flat down to the floor whilst keeping the car rotating around the corner. So that's the key to a quick lap on your own, but as you'll see later, guys, it's almost impossible to stick to that racing line when you're running 4 wide in a pack at the front of the field. So this really does only apply for solo runs only.
Yeah, and it will be a different kettle of fish, of course, by then. I'll tell you what, Lewis, I remember a few years back a video of the George Russell going around Portimao in his F1 car and deciding to commentate whilst he was doing it. It's about what areas he's looking out for when his turning zones and everything is. I think Andy McEwan's doing a stand-up job at trying to replicate that, isn't it? If not better him. It's looking very impressive there, and it's quite interesting to hear about the progressive banking system that they have installed here, I suppose, at Michigan. That's going to add yet another headache for a lot of drivers who won't have even heard of that before.
Yeah, I think this is where Andy has a bit of an advantage on some of the other drivers. He's very familiar with oval racing and NASCAR in general. There are a lot of people, if you're not looking out for it, it might be very easy to miss the line that Andy has shown us absolutely perfectly at the broadcast just then. Some might miss that line and not realise that that is the way to go, whereas Andy has already known prior to jumping into the session that that's the strategy he's going to go for, and he's clearly practiced that strategy, and he did it really well in the practice race. But I think it's definitely knowing that as a bit of research will definitely help some drivers, and it'll be interesting to see if certain drivers figure it out from what they're feeling through the steering wheel or just what they're seeing on the Delta. If they just find they do the line, that maybe they miss the apex by accident, but the Delta starts going down, then maybe the cogs begin to turn in their brain and they think, actually, there's something going on there that makes that line quicker, so I'm going to do that on a consistent basis, and then they might not understand why that is the quickest way, like Andy does, but they know that's what they should be doing. So it'll be interesting to see the different strategies adopted. One thing I would also like to point out is in our practice race, Andy was really good at running the high line effectively. Not many people, lots of people tried it, but not many people could manage to hold the momentum and get a good run off the corner. Everybody found it quite difficult to keep that momentum at mid-corner and would just lose the place. But I found it annoyingly because I was trying to pass Andy, and every time I was up the inside, he'd just keep it there on the outside, and then he'd just slingshot off the corner and pull away again. He did a really good job at that, so it'd be interesting to see what lines people adopt in pack racing as well as just on their own.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's we've actually been showing quite a lot of pack racing here in the qualifying session, actually, and we'll take a break from blowing smoke up Andy's nether regions and actually give a bit of credit to the likes of Rich Hayden, his teammate, who did put it on pole position for a short amount of time, and whilst running in a pack of about 3 or 4, finds himself leading a pack of about 7 or 8, who are all trying to use each other to slipstream and gain the fastest time. You can see, actually, a lot of drivers are almost going 4 wide up that progressive banking, which I'll be honest, I didn't know this place had until Andy mentioned it just then. And it's sort of using each other to try and get that side slipstream, to get that normal slipstream, toe, as we call it, to try and get the faster times. As you can see, the times have started tumbling. Elliot Dalton-Ayres currently sits on pole position with Josh Martin in 2nd place, Ollie Gibson in 3rd, Ethan Hill in 4th, Eric Axelson rounds out the top 5, and Rich Hayden decides to become a lawnmower, while everybody else decides to be a smoke machine. Andy Carroll goes off the circuit. A few of the drivers have as well. Stuart Vickers and Paul Laramie, I think, were involved in that little mix-up on the infield. Just goes to show that even in qualifying, people can get a little bit too close for comfort. This is last week's winner, Ethan Hill, the number 46. Said last week it was also a very popular winner. Ethan, I think, has only ventured onto the top 7 of the podium once, back in Porsche Caymans, I believe, Lewis. You recalled last week rather well, off the top of your head, which was a little bit impressive, because I certainly hadn't remembered that. Ethan certainly had, though. He mentioned it in his interview, of course, and he was a very pleased top step of the podium man, it has to be said. He's currently in 4th position, but Lewis, in NASCAR, the top 10, we heard Josh Martin talking about it, I think, in the first week. The top 10 is only really where you need to be for qualifying. That's sort of the aim. It doesn't really matter. The race is so long, so changeable, tactics come into it. You don't really need to worry too much. It's just about sort of getting into the rhythm almost.
Yeah, I think Josh was absolutely spot on with that comment. I think Joel proved it quite well in Auto Club. He didn't have a very good qualifying, didn't have a great start to the race, but he worked at it and he just kept his head down. He may have got a bit lucky with the strategy off the camera we didn't see, but he made his way from not great grid position by his standards all the way up onto the podium. And I think we've rounded out qualifying now, and the second week in a row, Andy McEwan on pole position, and Nicky, after being a little bit surprised apparently in the Discord server by how quick everybody was going, is actually in second place now. I think this is going to set up nicely for the finale, but one person who won't be impressed is Kyle. He's in 13th place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a good spot that, actually. I hadn't noticed that. I almost forgotten about Kyle. We're so used to seeing him in the top 5, talking about him. But yeah, not ideal for him. We're going to go to a very quick advert, and then we're going to have a chat to our pole position man, as we already have quite a few times. Maybe we'll bring in Nicky Taylor as well as championship leader going into this final round. We'll see you in a couple of seconds. And we are back in the virtual room. I do have Andy McEwan alongside me still to have a quick word with him, but we're actually going to try and drag Nicky Taylor in as well as the championship leader and currently second place on the grid. I can see that he's just joined the Discord. And Nicky, very quickly, because I know you do have a formation lap to fall into. Championship lead, front row in qualifying, confident?
Normally, yeah. Considering it's NASCAR, not particularly, but I'll try my best. And yeah, Andy got a lot of love there. Because before that lap, I think I was pretty much flat last. So I do thank him a lot there for the tow. And yeah, hopefully we can move forward and win and get my first win rather than getting second twice in a row.
You're very welcome, Nicky. Do remember that on the final lap.
I will do. Don't worry. I don't need the win if you're next to me, so it's all good.
Yeah, because that's a very slightly polite way of saying that Andy's not in the championship running here. It's fantastic, Nicky. To be honest, though, you weren't supposed to be here. What's happened there? What's the story?
We were doing work in the middle of London, and we pretty much finished it like today. So I managed to get home, and I was home for about 4 o'clock. So I had plenty of time. So I'm here, and I'm here to win.
Well, fantastic. And one last word before we go into the race. Have you been doing any practice for this week, or have you been sort of one eye on the GTV3 championship?
Well, I don't plan to do the GTV track.
You didn't plan to do the last 2 championships.
I know, but I'm not really liking the cars, so I'm planning to do, I think, Watkins, Bahrain, and Silverstone. But if I do any more, is yet to be seen. But yeah, I'll just focus on this one and then see how it goes for GTV3s. I might end up liking the car, so I might end up doing the whole thing. But as it looks currently, I don't think I'm doing the whole thing.
Right, well, we'll focus on the NASCAR then for now, and I'm sure you'll probably get a bit of FOMO about Tuesday night next week, and we'll be seeing you on the grid again. Thank you very much, Nicky. Good luck for the race.
Cool, cheers.
Right, Andy then, pole position. You left it late. It was a last lap flyer from yourself. You only drive in the 37s as well. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it's strange. It was one of those laps that didn't feel all that good, really. I came out of the pit lane on fresh tyres, and no cars were anywhere near me. So I actually parked and waited at pit exit. I knew I'd need the draft to be able to set a really good lap time, and sat and waited and waited and waited. And I saw the pack coming off turn 4, got out on track, dropped behind them, and just managed to time it right. Nicky came up behind me and thankfully didn't try and pass me, because that would have slowed us both down. He just sat behind us, and as he said, that gave him a free ticket to the front row as well. So very happy with that. I didn't mind starting, 5th, 6th on the grid. I didn't really want to find myself down in 9th or 10th, which is where I was. So very happy to get that lap in right at the end.
And you said right at the beginning, but just to reiterate it for any viewers coming in, are you expecting the race to be a bit more auto clubby or a bit more Daytona style?
Really a bit of both, to be honest. It's going to have a much more powerful draft, so very similar to Daytona, but you've got the space here that you had at Auto Club. This track's only about 2 feet narrower than Auto Club was, 73 feet wide from the white line to the wall, bags of space for you to go with all that momentum, and that's going to produce lots of good side-by-side racing.
Oh, fantastic, Andy. You've got about 10 seconds before you lead them round on a formation lap, so we'll probably dump you into the other Discord channel, which he's already left while I was halfway through that sentence. That's okay, fine. I see what it is. Lewis, it's exciting times, isn't it, when we build up to a race? And to be honest, I quite like a formation lap because it does get us a little bit G'd up. It sort of builds the momentum a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the drivers, I haven't actually asked them about this, but I think I get the impression if you get a good start from the rolling start, then people will say they love it. But if they're 30 meters behind the car they're supposed to be behind in lane, they're going to say we want standing starts back. It's the standard racing driver attitude towards it. If it goes well for me, it's the best thing since sliced bread, or we're never doing it again if it didn't go well. It'll be interesting to see what people think of it, but we're going to get a good rolling start now, hopefully.
We do indeed. So, Nicky Taylor on the inside, Andy McEwan on the outside, with Elliot Dalton, Josh Martin just behind them as well. The front 2 rows, and as they cross the line, Andy did wait and wait and wait until he put his pedal to the metal, and he's off and he's racing. It's Nicky Taylor who just slots in behind, but look at Elliot Dalton in the red car looking up the inside. Nothing happening just yet. He does fend off attacking Ethan Hill. That must mean that Josh Martin's had a bit of a mare, and he has. He's down into 7th position. Where's Carl Felvers? He's still in 12th place. He's a driver to be looking out for. He didn't have a great qualifying. What could he do in the race going forward? Andy maybe showing off that high, wide and handsome line that Lewis was talking about a little bit earlier, as Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton trying to push themselves through to take that race lead. And I think Andy essentially just managed to hold on to it, but almost making it 3 wide as Elliot Dalton as they cross the line for the first time with 38 minutes to go. It is pretty much as they were. And Lewis, I have to say, a fairly clean start.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like there's not been any kind of contact at all on that first lap, so hopefully that maintains throughout the race. But Andy is showing off exactly what I said in qualifying. He's running the high line, and he's keeping that momentum off the corners to stop Nicky and Elliot getting all the way in front of him. And at the moment, that's working really nice for him. I think Ethan's trying his best to follow that line, and others have clearly noticed that it's working out for him. And at the moment, they're kind of swapping between whether they're following Elliot and Nicky or they're following Andy. They're trying to go in 2 lanes, but Nicky and Elliot keep trying to go side by side, so it makes it difficult for the cars behind. But it makes it good action for us to watch.
Yeah, I'm guessing with Andy being at that higher end of the circuit, obviously that's a bit more banked up, but he's able to get on the power a little bit quicker, while the car's a little bit straighter as well, because when you're coming off from the high line, it's from the low line, and obviously taking the normal racing line, you sort of have to be a bit careful, you have to bleed the throttle on a bit more. Maybe you can be a bit more aggressive and get it down earlier. I'm not entirely sure. It'll be interesting to ask him while he's doing it, actually. We'll wait until he's back in the commentary box, because he's got quite a lot to think about for the time being, as him and Ethan Hill managed to get away somewhat from Joel Lask and Elliot Dalton, Nicky Taylor. Joel Lask from 11th on the grid all the way up into podium positions already is very impressive indeed. On the contrary, Josh Martin slipped all the way down into 12th place. Carl Felvers is up to 7th. Elliot Dalton is mixing it 4th and 5th. That's about where he started, along with Eric Axelston. Oliver Gibbs took up to 8th place as well. And a bit further down the field, of course, you got the likes of Rich Hayden, Andy Cowell, and John Jones all swapping position for about 12th place. In fact, Josh Martin's in amongst that company now. It's had a bit of a mare for him so far. 36 minutes ago, plenty of time, but maybe a little bit of contact here and there, something we haven't seen on camera. hasn't gone his way so far, but it has gone the way of the number 88 VRRC driver, Andy McEwan, as Ethan Hill slots up the inside. Last week's winner, of course, he's not to be forgotten about in this racing. It wasn't luck. There is a little bit of contact between himself and Andy McEwan. He drops him back into the later pack almost. Joel Lask and Ethan Hill survive. Joel Lask takes the race lead from 11th on the grid.
Yeah, I think Ethan got a bit of a swapper on in the middle of the corner and then got a bit of understeer after he tried to correct it, and that just washed him up wide and accidentally packed Andy a little bit there. So he's got away with it just about, as he's still in 5th, but will that damage have any major effect? It certainly doesn't seem to have affected Ethan, as he's still winning the race from Joel, who's proved yet again qualifying really doesn't mean that much, as he was already in the fight for the lead after pretty much just 1 or 2 laps from 11th on the grid. I'd love to see his start from on board. Maybe after the race we'll have a look at the replay for that one. He's gained 9 places on pretty much 2 laps.
Yeah, another driver who's done a similar feat almost. In fact, exactly the same, 9 places, is Carl Felvis. He started in 13th, remember? He's up to 4th place and mixing it right at the front here. So clearly, I was right in what I was saying in qualifying. It doesn't really matter where you qualify, as long as you sort of keep it clean during the race. You just make the first couple of laps a little bit harder for yourself. And of course, Andy's managed to make his way back up to the front 2 rows. Ethan Hill's had to settle to go back into 3rd place, but he's trying to make it 3 wide. And is he going to suffer from a little bit of an understeer midway through the corner as well? And I tell you what, maybe caused that understeer moment earlier on, Lewis, is that a potential sort of the difference in the gradient of the corner. Because of course, like Andy said, it's almost like hitting a curb and you end up getting the car unsettled. And that forced him wide. Maybe he wasn't expecting it as much. Are we going to go 4 wide? No, we're not. Quite reasonably, they managed to just keep it 3 wide for the time being. Maybe 73 feet or whatever Andy said earlier from white line to wall. But there's still probably not enough time and space for 5 cars to make it. Even though I'm sure these VRRC drivers have the skills to put it into action. So Ethan on the inside, that is Mr. McEwan on the middle, on the outside, and Joel Lask right slap bang in the middle of all 3 of them. Then you got Kyle Felvis in the bright red, oh my god, I forgot his name, out of the Cars movie, Lightning McQueen. There we go, Lightning McQueen, who's sandwiched in the middle as Andy McEwan ends up in the wall a little bit there, gets a bit of a tag. Is that going to have damaged his car? Carl Felvis goes into the lead. Joel Lask is in 2nd place. Nicky Taylor and Ethan Hill still mucking about the place. Nicky Taylor in that bright blue car right in the middle of all of this action. Remember, he is the championship leader. We had a chat to him earlier on. He's managed to come back from London to participate in this race with plenty of time, and I think we're going to go 4 wide almost for 1st place. Ethan Hill holds on to that for the time being, and Carl Felvis just about fends off the likes of his HFT teammate Nicky Taylor, who's now slotted from the middle, ducked to the inside on the apron.
I think so far Andy seems to have been kind of the unfortunate party to other people understeering wide throughout the corners. It seems that while the high line is working for him when everybody's keeping it clean in the middle, as soon as they get a little bit of understeer, if they're getting a little bit too enthusiastic on the loud pedal, with their track still ramping up, he gets a little tap and then he's in the wall. So hopefully the damage isn't affecting him as much as it maybe would in real life. We've lowered the damage threshold to 50%. So hopefully that will mean that everybody can stay intact and get a good car to the finish, as they're still going about 3 or 4 wide almost every straight at the moment.
Yeah, now if you're wondering if that's 50%, that sort of damage limiter, that we put on the cars is going to stick with VRRC, it isn't. It's just because this is a bit of a fun championship. And of course, many of the drivers haven't actually done the NASCAR before, so we wanted to give them a little bit of a chance. But of course, we do pride ourselves on realism here at VRRC, and the GTV3s will be different and will be as usual. And we've got a collection involving Joel Lask, Andy McEwan, and was that Nicky Taylor as well? They're still spinning with a 888 car now, going sideways. And I'm not entirely sure who that was. Was it Kenny Press potentially? But we do know that Joel Lask and Andy McEwan and Kenny Press all involved in that. And I think it was Nicky Taylor as well who dropped down into 8th position. Lewis, did you keep an eye on who else that was? Well, Rich Hayden jumps up to 2nd place.
Yeah, Rich probably told them to do it. That's benefited him massively. He's come from absolutely nowhere all the way up into 2nd place. And it looks like he's now taking the lead. He's going to chuck out a caution now, probably, and then leave it out for the next 31 minutes. But
well, we do have cautions on the horizon, don't we? Of course, we do have competition cautions in NASCAR, and well, we know when they're coming, Lewis, don't we? But we won't spoil it for the ladies and gentlemen at home. But that could cause a massive issue, and all of a sudden, tactics and strategy changes.
absolutely, yeah, we need to know when they are so that we can send Andy back to the commentary box with Josh Martin in the wall.
Oh, he is indeed, and he's still facing the wrong way with an awful lot of smoke being poured out of his car. Wheels spin ablaze, gets back facing the right way, but he's all the way down in 12th place, and he's already about a third of a lap behind. By the time he gets up to full speed, he'll be half a lap down with Mr. McEwan as the driver that is about to overtake him. And maybe this is probably about the right time that we actually bring Mr. McEwan back into the commentary box. Didn't want to distract him whilst he was in amongst all the fighting and everything like that, but now he's unfortunately a little bit in no man's land, fighting with Josh Martin. Andy, that looked like one hell of a 10 minutes, but it all ended up in flames.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that while it lasted, but yeah, there seems to be a few people just being a bit too aggressive, really, and going for moves that you would make on the last lap, but 6 or 7 laps into the race aren't really necessary. As for what actually killed me off there in the end, I'm not really sure. I just was minding my business on the high line, and suddenly 3 cars shot up in front of me, having already had contact. So, bit of a shame. The car actually doesn't feel super badly damaged. It's definitely carrying some damage, but I'm hoping if we get a caution at some point, we can get it fixed. And I'm still on the lead lap. That's the main thing. And yeah, hopefully not out of this just yet.
Well, yeah, you're about half a lap down, so you're still well within the the lap. And if you and Josh Martin can start working together, do you think there's maybe an opportunity to put some flyers in there?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's difficult to do without having direct communication with the driver, though, because it's all about timing and, drafting past each other down the straight, but then ultimately leaving each other alone in the corners. And that's pretty tricky to do unless you're in direct communication with the driver. But I'm pretty confident we can at least keep the pace. If we can stay to within a second a lap of the leaders, then hopefully we should be able to stay on the lead lap until such a point as we get a caution.
Absolutely, yeah. I can just see up ahead of you there's a little bit more drama. Reece Bell has dropped all the way down into 11th place, so there's been another bit of a collision, not as badly as what you were stricken with, but the likes of Kyle Felder from 13th on the grid is now running in 3rd. Ethan Hill's got the race lead. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is in 2nd place. Eric Axel has managed to survive all of it and still be around the 4th position. Rich Hayden has dropped down into 5th place as well. But Andy, it just goes to show that even though the likes of Kyle Felder ended up qualifying in about 13th, running in 3rd, qualifying really isn't all that, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember thinking that to myself, actually, when I saw Kyle arriving in my mirrors about 2 or 3 laps into the race. Yeah. It just doesn't take long to get to the front. I had a little moment with Joel. In fact, I've had 2 or 3 little moments with Joel in this race already, and it knocked me down to, 7th, 8th, 9th or so, and I was back in the lead within a lap and a half. So as long as you know what you're doing and you place yourself in the right position, use the draft right, you can come from the back to the front in next to no time, which is really why you don't need to take these risks in the early stages. If you're at the back of the pack, then so what? You'll have your chance to get to the front. You've just got to be a little bit patient, maybe.
Yeah, do you think we're trained up here in Europe to be very sort of ruthless with the moves and everything like that? Because there's not as many opportunities on track racing potentially as there are in NASCAR. So do you think people are a little bit sort of hot-headed almost in their aggression early on in the race?
I think that's definitely it. You've got to remember that most of the drivers, if not all of them on this grid with me, have never really turned a lap of NASCAR racing in their life. It's certainly not something that they're super experienced with, and a lot of people think that it's just like jumping from a GT car into a touring car or a touring car into a single-seater, and it's basically the same discipline, you just slightly tweak your driving style. In NASCAR and all oval racing, really, it's not just a driving style shift, it's a mentality shift as well. You've got to understand how to use the draft, how to use the different areas of the track, and it's like hitting the big reset button. Yes, you've still got pedals that you need to push. Yes, you've still got a wheel that you need to turn from left to right, mainly left around ovals, of course. But apart from that, there are no similarities between this kind of racing and the kind of racing that we cover week in, week out here at the VRRC.
Absolutely. And one last bit before we focus on the race. Actually, no, we're going to have to focus on the race lead now, actually, because they're going to go 3 wide, aren't they? Eric Axelson down by the white line. Elliot Dalton is right in the middle of a sandwich between himself and Ethan Hill, trying to get to that race lead. He is indeed, yeah, Ethan Hill, so he takes that race lead. So there's still 4 battling at the top end of the order here at the VRRC Nascar Special Event finale. Carl Felvis is frantically trying to catch up, but he has probably just about lost the toe. It's Ethan Hill and Eric Axelson almost chopping each other's noses off, going through the final corner, actually, it is. Eric now takes the race lead, and to be honest, we could be going back and forth saying who takes the race lead for the next 25 minutes, and I'll be hoarse by the end of it. But basically, the top 4, Axelson, Hill, Hayden, and Elliot Dalton Ayres, with Carl Felvis just about lagging behind, trying to catch up. One last bit about sort of the difference between the cars. You talk about driver technique. Oh, Andy's gone, actually, and I know exactly why he's gone. We'll speak to him in a couple of minutes' time, as I believe that's Rich Hayden running very close to Elliot Dalton Ayres. Lewis, I tell you what, it's almost too close for comfort sometimes.
Yeah, I think it is, especially for Rich, knowing how unlucky he's been over the past 2 weeks. He's really probably just hoping to have a clean, good fight with some people without just something causing an incident. So I think he's just dropped back ever so slightly, but I think we are now under caution. Everybody is going to bunch up. I'll be interested to see who goes for the pits, as I think they're going to
Josh Martin has.
Josh Martin, you're absolutely right, Jack, has gone for the pits. I think Andy is probably also... looks like everybody's going to wait to come in again the next lap around. I think by the looks of it, we might see everybody peel off to the left-hand side for them, the right-hand side, the inside for us to go into the pit lane, as it's about that sort of time where we're approaching half distance. There may or may not be another caution further on in the race. That's completely at Rich's discretion, and depending if there are incidents. Oh, interesting. Some people are deciding to risk it for a second caution, and others are coming in. It'll be interesting to see how this one pans out for Eric Kyle and Ollie Gibson again. Decided to go for the late pit stop strategy. Other than them, there is an absolute stack of cars in the pit lane. Hopefully everybody hits their marks nicely, and then we'll see who comes out in the effective race lead, ignoring those who have stayed out. Looks like Elliot has got the jump on them all, followed by Ethan. I think that's Reese Bell, who had previously dropped all the way down to about 11th or 12th place, and is now back up in that group of cars fighting for the lead.
Interesting, really, isn't it? Because, of course, we tried to second guess what everybody's tactics were, what would happen after the first couple of pit stops and everything last time. But it was pretty much impossible because you don't know who's taken tyres, you don't know who's fueled up, and all of a sudden the tyres played a huge factor in who could sort of really push on in the last couple of minutes before the end of the race. And Lewis, I have to say, we don't know that much, do we, me and you particularly, about how these cars chew the tyres up around Michigan. You probably know a little bit more than me because you raced on Monday. You did the fun race with these guys. Can you sort of give us any insight into what we might be expecting? Those who have taken tyres, those who haven't, is there going to be a big discrepancy?
I can tell you from field that you can notice the tyres going off, but it doesn't seem to have a major effect on the lap time as such. I think draft is a much more important factor, and where you are compared to other cars will make the biggest difference compared to others. And I wonder if we're going to get a restart, actually, for up myself.
Kenny Press has peeled into the pits, and I'm just wondering whether Eric Axelson, who's currently the pace car, are we going to get him racing away? I don't think we are just yet. No, I think... Oh,
yes,
are we?
We are.
Yeah, he seems to have gone. Yeah, he seems to have gone. I can't hear the engine noise, unfortunately, which is the reason why I always get confused of whether they're racing or not. But yes, we are. Eric Axelson, Carl Felvis, Oliver Gibson, the top three. The three that also didn't pit. Very important to keep that in mind. With Elliot Dalton, there's Ethan Hill, Rich Hayden, Reese Bell, Stuart Vickers, Paul Laramie, and Andy McEwan, who's managed to get himself back up to P9 as the top three start battling. Eric Axelson gets a nudge and a lean from Kyle Felvis saying, "Get off me, this is my race lead for the time being. You had your turn, try again in a couple of laps' time." Oliver Gibson around the outside trying the high, wide and handsome line. Doesn't manage to get it stuck, but he does get a really good exit. Can he get into the slipstream? No, he does not. We already heard Andy McEwan talking about how aggressive some of the drivers are in terms of trying to get their importance, stamp their authority early on in the races. Let's see if they're going to carry on that sort of theme throughout. To be fair, I don't think what he was talking about was involved with any of these 3 drivers, because I don't think any of these 3 drivers have actually had any contact so far in this race, but they're certainly getting very close to each other, with Rich Hayden in 4th place and a big crash in the background. And that's Nicky Taylor involved, our championship leader, Paul Laramie, Andy Carroll, John Jones all involved as well. Josh Martin had taken advantage. I think that means he probably managed to just about avoid it, with 3 drivers or 4 drivers still facing the wrong way, unfortunately. John Jones just managing to get back onto the grass, as with now 2, 4, 5, 6 almost 2 by 2 rows. Oh, that's very, very close. Who is that? It's Andy McEwan. No, it's Ethan Hill. And, oh, that's the driver I was trying to find out. It's Elliot Dalton-Ayres, who ends up going into the apron and ends up going into the wall as well, trying to join all the pit crew on the inside there. Elliot Dalton-Ayres' race not going particularly well for the last couple of minutes' time. He's going to have to do a lot of recovering now between now and the end of the race. He'll be hoping for another caution period. Rich Hayden currently leads, Eric Axelson, Joel Lask, Oliver Gibson, Carl Felbers, Andy McEwan, and Reece Bell all in amongst it for the next 20 minutes, we hope.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely all to play for at the moment. Any one of this leading pack of that 8 cars could, within 2 laps, be right at the front. I think it's so impossible to call who's going to be there at the end of the race at the moment. We've seen people... Well, Andy was right at the back after a huge incident not 5 minutes ago. He's now 3rd and looking like he has the most pace of the field. Rich has been... He started right at the back. He then didn't start very well. And then he's now 4th, up to 3rd now. Kyle was 13th. It's all to play for.
Yeah, Andy and Rich both did come into the pits, and I reckon we were talking about tyres. I reckon at least Andy has taken tyres, because he just managed to get a lot of momentum and a lot of grip around the outside of the circuit, and we already know that is one of his strong suits. It's the line that he likes to take, but it's still performing very strongly, probably stronger than we expected. As we said, we didn't expect to go from right at the back to right at the front quite so quickly. And the fact that Rich is up there as well, maybe there's been a little bit of communication with them about who's going to take tyres and whether or not they think it's the right decision. But as they go 4 wide, Eric Axelson's on the inside. You don't want to go and start understeering, especially into your teammates. And we've already known that in the first week at Daytona, Rich Hayden and Andy McEwan had a few comings together. Not verbally, they did just have a few bumps and bruises out there on circuit. Luckily, they managed to keep their gloves on before they had the interviews with us at the end of the race. But it was quite interesting to see those 2 sort of working together and almost slipping over each other a little bit as well. But as Andy takes the race lead from Joel Lask, it's Rich Hayden who is left fighting with the likes of Eric Axelson, Carl Felbers, Ethan Hill, and like Lewis was saying a little bit before, all of the top 8 within a reasonable shout of having a go at this for the next 18 minutes. Will we get another caution? That's the big question. Will we see tyre drop off? Where are those drivers that didn't actually take into the pits? Eric Axelson was one of them, Lewis. It doesn't seem to be hurting him too bad. Yeah,
I think Eric is much more on pace and he looks much more comfortable this week than he has done in previous weeks. It's really nice to see him back in what I think we can all safely say is his usual place in the grid, right at the front, fighting for wins. It seems like his pace is finally, he's got the car figured, he's got the racing figured, and he's back at the front. And it's really nice to see him back there, but also he's fighting some slightly newer competition. He won't have raced Andy McEwan, obviously, and Ethan's right there at the front. We see Joel, Rich as well, yeah, we see Joel at the front quite regularly, as we do with Kyle as well. Reece Bell, he's another one that we don't usually see at the front, but he's got the chance to win today. They all do. Really great to see.
It is, and we just hope that and pray that we keep it as clean as possible for the next 17 minutes or so. And whether or not we get another competition caution or whether there's just going to be another caution generally is wait to be seen. Who's going to, some drivers are going to have to pit under green flag conditions. The likes of Eric and Oliver Gibson, if they're not careful. I think Carl Felbers was another one as well, and Kyle's right up there with the thick of it, of course. So it's not just Eric Axelson who seems to have survived it. It's all 3 of them, I would say, and they're almost going to go 3 wide. No, 4 wide. Scrap the 3 wide. It's going to be 4, isn't it? Ethan Hill's sort of squeezing. Is that Mr. McEwan on the inside? No, it's Rich Hayden on the inside, isn't it? McEwan actually came out the throttle a little bit and decided that it was better to fight for another day rather than try and win a 4-wide battle. Probably sensible as well. Eric Axelson's trying that high, wide, and handsome line just behind Joel Lask as well. So a few drivers trying out a few different lines. Very interesting to see. Oh, and Joel Lask actually comes down almost into and sideswiping the two VRRC cars and chopping the noses off. They're going to go 3 wide. Lewis, this must be pretty terrifying. Was it like this on the Monday night as well? Because honestly, I'm actually tensing up, almost hiding behind my hand. I can hardly see it. It's getting a little bit like, I'm feeling a bit tense, put it that way.
Yeah, I think it wasn't quite as many cars in this close proximity. In the end, towards the second half of the race, there was a 4-way battle between me, Andy, Joel, and Ethan, and we worked together as a pack whilst also. That's Rich round.
Hayden goes sideways and onto his roof.
rolled it.
That's the biggest wreck we've seen so far at VRRC NASCAR, and it was involving Rich Hayden. And I don't want to assume, but I think it was Ethan Hill as well, just because he's come up on the crash counter with a little bit of damage on the front end of his car. But Rich Hayden's. Well, I know we're all 50% damage, but his car must be pretty much written off.
Yeah, well, it's a good job he doesn't have to pick up the bill for it. Yeah, that is a very destroyed NASCAR, even with 50% damage. So maybe he'll call himself a little caution just to try and get back onto the pack. And I think we might get another one, whether it's a competition one or hopefully not incident related. But that would really bunch absolutely everybody back in with a chance of winning, and I think that would be a really nice way to round out this brilliant special event.
Yeah, well, if you're out there wondering and thinking that putting competition cautions out is a little bit of a fix or anything like that, it's not. It's actually how NASCAR actually do it in real life as well. And Andy could explain it a lot better than me, but it's they actually have they split their races up into 3 these days. So you almost have 3 race winners all in the same race. A little bit confusing. If you don't follow NASCAR, don't bother listening to me trying to explain it. Better just to YouTube the individual rules, because it is, like we said so often over the last 3 weeks, almost a completely different sport to what we're used to in track racing. It's quite fascinating, to be honest, but it is very confusing if you get it explained badly to you, which I'm sure I probably would do, to be honest. You may definitely want to be YouTubing it, because it is fascinating. Hopefully this has wet your whistle for more NASCAR events. I'm not going to say that we're going to do loads of it. We won't do a proper championship of it or anything like that at VRRC, but you never know. We could see oval style racing come back in a special event style thing at VRRC, and hopefully this sort of series has learnt, the drivers have learnt a lot from it. Or we could even do, because of course, Lewis, they do NASCAR on standard tracks. They use the infield tracks, don't they? And even European NASCAR and stuff like that. So there are plenty of options if the drivers have enjoyed what they've done so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I've very much enjoyed watching it. I think we've had a brilliant championship in the touring cars, which was brilliant for a whole different reason. We had a proper championship battle. We knew sort of who was going to be on pace for those top few places, but it could have been any one of them who won, and it was a bit more strategic. In this, it is really all about racecraft and just having that bit of luck, but really anybody could do anything in this. And you're seeing passes so frequently as well. In the touring cars and our other road racing championships, you have to set up your moves, you have to think about what you're doing. Whereas in NASCAR, a lot of the moves come a lot quicker. You'll just be drafting past somebody because you're in a certain lane which is going faster at that point in time. So the result of that is you see places changing so frequently in this. And I think that's a really brilliant, different thing we've come to see. And we've learnt a lot more about the world of NASCAR and the racing that goes on beyond just you race round in different oval shapes very quickly, very close to other people. And I think you're absolutely right. There are plenty of good road tracks they do go to. But I wouldn't rule out anything just yet, because I think Rich is very keen on NASCAR, and I think everybody is very excited by how well it's gone, and I think we all want to see some more at some point.
Yeah, well, it's actually quite interesting, really, because I was going to say, I'm sure lots of these drivers will want to see NASCARs again, and a lot of them will probably, well, a few of them will potentially be glad to see the back of them. And I was going to suggest that Rich Hayden was one of those drivers, because it really has been a torrid championship for him, as Eric Axelsson pits under green flag conditions. And the reason why that is so dramatic is, one, he was involved with the championship, the race lead, but two, with everybody else pitting under caution periods, they'll have lost a lot less time than Eric Axelsson will. They're already halfway around the circuit, and Eric Axelsson comes back out into the race all the way down in 8th position. So that's going to be rather dramatic. If we do have another caution period, that could work in his favour. He'll catch back up. Everybody else has to pit, and he might end up taking the race lead again. That's a big if. And as we learned last week, I don't know anything about strategy, so you can take what I say with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Joel Lask and Andy McEwan fighting for the race lead then, with Josh Martin, who appeared somehow. He's been involved in multiple crashes. We've seen him race in the wrong way on several occasions so far this evening, and he's all the way up to 2nd place as well. So again, another example as to see why NASCAR is so beloved and why it's so exciting, because you really do have every opportunity of getting back into the race, as we've already seen with Josh Martin and with Andy McEwan, with Joel Lass from qualifying so far down, and of course Carl Felders as well, all of which are running in the top 5 rather impressively. Oh, there's quite a few, and where on earth is Joel Lass going? He comes into the pits. Was that a reaction from what everybody else seemed to be doing? With 10 minutes to go, I think potentially we're under caution period. Are we? Andy McEwan slows right down, is he? Yeah,
Yep.
he's in the lead, and he's taken the caution period. And I think Joel Lask, I'll tell you what, if they told Hamilton off for a late pit entry, well, Joel Lask, I'll tell you what, that was a different time zone.
Yeah, Joel, I think it must have been a very late call. Well, when I say late, I mean Rich must have called the caution just as they were going up to the pit entry, in maybe the hope that it would split some people's minds, because it would have to be just a reaction. And I think Joel was so close to missing it. It must have been on pure instinct that he knew if Rich says caution, just pit. And I think the thing with Eric is he's actually in 3rd place, and he did only have to pit a couple of laps ago, but I think he might have just not had the fuel to carry on to the caution period, because also we didn't know this caution was going to come out. So it's interesting to see that he was the only one that didn't manage to drag it out this long. But in true NASCAR style, we thought he would have lost a ton of time. He's 3rd on the road now.
Yes, he's done that all right, hasn't he, really? The fact that this oval is only 2 miles long, it's similar to Auto Club. It's a lot shorter than Daytona, as our race leader, Mr. McEwan, comes into the pits. And, well, we saw Joel Lask dive, and we saw about 4 out of the top 5 all dive into the pits. But Andy wasn't one of them. I don't think he could quite get across in time. He didn't think he was able to make it. So now he has to pit, and that'll fall him all the way down into pretty much plumb dead last. Very interesting to see. There's still a big difference between the leaders and the Nicky Taylor train, I'm going to call it, which are currently on the other side of the circuit, just about going around the final corner. They are going to catch up, but going a little bit slower. Maybe they were just having to pit a little bit earlier, and they lost a lot of time for that one. There's Stuart Vickers as well, number 27, hasn't really had a brilliant time of it so far in any of the 3 races, unfortunately. Nicky Taylor, as I said, now catching up to the back of the pack. Championship leader, Lewis, not where he wants to be going into the final 5 minutes. It'll probably be, or 6 minutes. What's the thought process here? We've seen so many people recovering from stricken positions. Can he do it? Or do you reckon there's going to be a little bit not enough time for this one?
Having watched Nicky in some of our previous championships on the reverse grid races, he of all people will know this is doable. It'll be tricky, but it'll be doable. And I think if you're wondering why they were so far behind, I believe they were waved through to get their lap back, so he is now on the lead lap. I think it's just Paul Laramie who is now catching up to the back of the pack. So everybody is on the lead lap. Everybody has a chance. And we've got 6 minutes to sort it out to see who it's going to be. It's actually Reese Bell from almost nowhere, who is now going to lead them away.
He is, but he's been out for 21 laps since his pit. So he hasn't pitted under this caution or any time in the last 21 laps. Eric Axelsson pitted 3 laps ago. Like we said, Kenny Press has gone 20 without pitting. Whereas Joel Lass, Carl Felvis and Ethan Hill, they're the drivers at the top who have come into the pits whilst the caution has come out. So really, Reese Bell and Kenny Press, their tyres should disintegrate a lot quicker than the likes of Eric Axelsson and Joel Lask backwards, but we'll have to wait and see. What will Reese Bell do here? We're going to get racing, I reckon, with 6 minutes to go. Pedal to the metal. Yes, indeed. Kenny Press and Joel Lask dive out to create a 2x2 sort of formation with Eric Axelsson not hanging around. He wants to get into the race lead. He wants to get gone. His tyres are probably slightly warmer than everybody else's. Even though they were under caution period, he did get an opportunity to scrub them in and get going before that caution period came out. Is that going to be an advantage? Is that going to be a disadvantage? Is that not going to matter whatsoever? Probably the latter. Joel Lask gets into the race lead and tries to prove my point immediately that it doesn't matter at all. With Reese Bell currently separating the 2 drivers you would expect to pull away into the race lead. Carl Felvis trying to get through and joining them as quickly as humanly possible as well. But look at it, on the inside, Oliver Gibson and Ethan Hill on the white line, almost trying to trade paint on that white line as well. It's going to be a little bit difficult to try and find the room. They don't manage it just for the time being. They calm down and just decide, you know what, better to fight for another day. How is Mr. McEwan getting on? He's moved up to 13th position. Where's Nicky Taylor as well? That's another driver I want to be keeping an eye out on. He's up to 12th, fighting it with Andy McEwan. Expect those 2 drivers to be carving through the field and fighting for the race lead before too long. Reese Bell is up to 3rd still. Carl Felvis is in 4th. But I tell you what, Lewis, it's anybody's game right now. 4 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
You're absolutely spot on. Everybody has a chance. You can see all of the cars in pretty much all of the camera shots. So that's how close it is between all of them. And those further back are getting more slipstream and getting pulled further towards the cars in front. So it's constantly closing up. I think we've got a little group at the back with the final 3 cars have been slightly dropped by those in front. I think they've managed to escape from 3 people, but now the lead pack covers still 13 drivers by the looks of it. There's a couple go very wide there, but it seems to be anybody's game at the moment. Joel looks like he's got a really good car on the restart there. He's got a really good final corner at the end of that first lap. You could see the car hook up really nicely. But he's clearly got plenty of tyres left. So he must have been, well, we saw his incredible pit entry. Not sure how legal it was, but that is up to somebody else to decide, not us. And what I'm seeing, Andy McEwan is now in the fight for the lead, having been second to last at the start of that restart.
Yeah, one can only assume that he's taken tyres and he's using all of his wealth of oval racing experience, I should say, in trying to get to the front as quickly as possible. And I think there was a little bit of almost bump drafting there with himself and Joel Lask, I think, as they go 4 wide for 3rd position here. Just about hold it together as they're going through the final couple of laps. And there's a 38-second lap. We've got 3 minutes to go, so there's probably 4 laps to go, roughly. And as we said multiple times, pretty much any of the drivers can win it so far. They're going to go 3 wide for the race leader. McEwan actually, unusually, goes for the inside line. We're quite often used to seeing him right on the high line, and he manages to hold on and take the race lead ahead of Ethan Hill, who decides, you know what, if you want to go back out to the outside, I'll take that inside. Thank you very much. And Joel Lask getting the slipstream nicely as they come across the start-finish line. 2.5 minutes to go. Rich Hayden's up there as well. The VRRC teammates don't want to fall into each other yet. Again, Josh Martin is in amongst it, but a little bit further back in the pack. But that can all change as well. It's been a thrilling night of racing here at Michigan. It's been a brilliant 3 weeks, to be honest, of NASCAR special events. And there's a turnaround and more drama. We're not done yet. Was that Rich Hayden? He can't catch a break. He's almost on his roof again. He's definitely in the wall. He's lucky that he didn't collect actually more people, to be honest. And yet again, Rich Hayden feels the cruel curse of NASCAR racing. And I'm sure if the fans are real, there'll be a massive gasp of excitement and trepidation as he came back across the field. But to be honest, I'm sure Rich Hayden will be glad to see the back in NASCAR. He won't be enjoying his time. Well, he probably has been enjoying it in terms of driving the car. maybe not the races, Lewis. 1 minute and 30 seconds left to go.
Yeah, I think I was going to mention, it was like I just thought I was going to say, Rich was doing so well. He was on his roof 10 minutes ago, and then he's up in the fight for the lead. It's just like the telepathic commentator's curse. I was going to mention him, and then he's in the wall again.
Yeah, well, trust me, the commentator's curse never gets old. It's always there, whether you think it, whether you say it. All of a sudden, the driver that you've been keeping an eye out on, it'll go wrong for them. It's just an absolute guarantee, unfortunately. But that's why we try and keep impartial as much as possible, even if we do fail every so often. Joel Lask and Andy McEwan then for the race lead, but they're going to be joined by Ethan Hill. They're going to be joined by Josh Martin, and you bet your bottom dollar they're joined by Elliot Dalton-Ayres as well. The top five are somewhat pulled away as they crash into each other. They close in on the middle there, and Ethan Hill comes away with the lead. Who's fallen down the order is Josh Martin, Oliver Gibson as well. Ethan Hill in the race lead. Elliot Dalton-Ayres in second place. Joel Lask and Andy McEwan are still within touching distance with 30 seconds left to go. I think we're going to get one more lap. We're just finishing off the first corner, and there's more carnage in the background as well. And I think Eric Axel's involved. Nicky Taylor is on his roof. He's through the ground. He's not going to finish this one in that kind of state anyway. Our championship leader, that could blow the whole thing wide open as they still continue to bump. They still continue to crash. It's like going shopping and B&Q. There's so many taps around on these cars. It's fantastic when Joel Lask and Ethan Hill, though, as we round out the clock. Is it going to be a drag race to the line? I think Joel Lask is going to have the nose. Is he going to take the victory? He is! Andy McEwan in second place. Elliot Dalton-Ayres ends up in third. Ethan Hill in fourth. Paul Laramie in fifth. And my goodness, I need to turn my radiator off because all of a sudden it's got far too hot in here. It's a brilliant racing from VRRC Nascar Event. It's a shame that it all came to a little bit of a head on the last lap there, Lewis. But I tell you what, it was damn exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It fully delivered what we were expecting. Nicky did manage to get up to fifth before he ended up through the ground and then on his roof. So he almost pulled it back. But I think what all of this means, by my rough calculations, is that Joel Lask will probably take the championship of this little special event. And either way, he is treating us to some lovely donuts and burnouts, as I believe is Ethan Hill a bit further up the track. And I think they're both absolutely delighted. It's been a great championship for Ethan as well as Joel. They've both really impressed throughout. And I think everybody has had a little moment where they've done something brilliant throughout this whole special event.
It's been a spectacle, put it that way, hasn't it? And normally it's about this time that we'd bring in the other co-commentator, Andy McEwan, to give his insight because he hasn't finished on the podium. But this time, he has finished on the podium. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot to a very quick advert, and then we're going to include him in our post-race interviews. We'll see you in a minute. tell you what, I needed that 30 seconds. I needed to take a breather. And to be honest, I think it's going to remain quite spicy in the commentary box as well, because we will have all three of our drivers coming in for an interview. At the moment, we are lacking a winner for the evening. So we're going to go straight into second place interview, and it is with Mr. McEwan. And I tell you what, Andy, this is the first time we've ever brought you in as a race podium. I mean, sorry, a driver podium, I should say, actually. I mean, that must be, I feel, a bit of an honour for you.
It is, it took me 3 weeks, but yeah, I finally made it onto the podium. That's it now. I can retire as a VRRC driver, not quite with a win, but with a podium and a little virtual trophy. So I'm quite happy with that.
I was going to say, was it, well, I won't say exactly what you said to us when you came in just before we went live again, but was it a bit of gloves off towards the end?
Yeah, so I got very much. My race was sort of derailed by getting caught up in a couple of crashes early on. That damaged the car, and I think a little bit of inexperience on my part. I don't really race a lot on Assetto Corsa. I didn't know how long it would take to repair the certain bits of damage, so I didn't bother repairing anything at the first caution. Sort of held on with the lead power, but I could tell I was down on power. And I didn't want to take too long in the second caution repairing it. So I thought, right, either the engine or the bodywork. I'm going to take a punt and say the engine's damaged, so I'll waste some time repairing that. Came into the pit lane, set it to repair the engine, and the engine was fine. So it must have been bodywork damage, but by that point it was too late. So I was stuck out there with a damaged car. I'd missed the chance to pit when the safety car actually came out. So by going another lap, I came out the pits right at the back. And I thought, you know what, I've tried to not annoy anyone too much over the last couple of weeks. I've just been out there to enjoy it and be part of the show. But with 7 minutes to go, a bit of a last to first challenge seemed quite tasty to me, and I just decided to go for it.
Well, it was very tasty to watch, I have to say, as well. It was very entertaining from our perspective. And as you said, don't worry, you can be in the commentary box annoying them next week, aren't they? And they can't touch you in there. So it's a fantastic place to slate people off. It was very exciting, Andy. I have to say, we didn't bring you in for the last couple of minutes either, because we could see how busy you were. Has it been a championship you enjoyed? Would you like to see NASCARs again in the future? Me and Lewis were talking about VRRC, how we could have NASCARs on track racing, like on infield racing as well in Europe and other versions. Is that something you'd like to see?
I think we already know my answer to that question. The more NASCAR we have on the VRRC, the better. I love this form of racing, and the great thing about doing it on a sim like Assetto Corsa with these mods is it's a heightened version of it anyway. So as exciting as real world NASCAR is, this is even more exciting just with the package that we've got. And it's the thing that's given me the most pleasure over the last 3 weeks is listening to the other drivers who perhaps had never driven on an oval before. They'd never done a NASCAR race before. They kind of came in either not knowing what to expect or expecting it to be pretty boring and a bit easy and just driving around in circles. It's been so nice to see them not only learning over the weeks, but really gaining an appreciation for this sport that I've loved for over a decade. And if we can have more of it on the VRRC, I am not going to argue with that.
Yeah, NASCAR fever really has gripped us and infected the VRRC community, I feel. But thank you very much, Andy, for coming in and having a chat to us. I'm sure we'll have a chat to you before we go, before we finish the broadcast. But Lewis, I believe you've got third place, man. Elliot Dalton Ayres alongside you.
Yeah, I do. Elliot, it was a bit of a race of attrition, that one. We saw you get knocked off and spun into the infield, and then we thought, oh no, is that your race over? And then here you are back in third place on the podium. How was it?
That's what I thought. I mean, when I got tagged by Ethan, I was just a bit like, oh no, that's my race over. But luckily there was one more safety car, and I boxed again because my tires were absolutely gone. I mean, I was losing maybe six tenths to I can't remember who was in front of me, but boxed again and then got out 12th and then just fought my way back through. And that last lap was quite insane with 4 of us within a tenth.
Yeah, so towards the end, when everybody was really gloves off racing, was there any kind of strategy to get past people, or was it just stay out of trouble on your side?
I mean, there was no plan apart from stay out of trouble. Just if I saw a gap opening, I'd have to go for it to bring me up the order. But that's kind of what I did, and then 4 of us going up to the line, and somehow I got third.
And are you looking forward to maybe some more NASCAR in the future? How have you enjoyed this little special event?
feelings. I mean, for me, I've been tagged quite a lot, but I guess the good thing about this is that you can really bring yourself back in with the safety cars. But I think it'd be really fun if we had some more NASCAR.
Brilliant. Well done on the third place, and we hope to see you back for the GTV3 Championship starting next week.
Thanks, Lewis.
Yep, and lovely to hear Lewis having a chat to Elliot Dalton Ayres, but we do have to move on to a provisional champion and race winner, Joel Lask. Congratulations, massive win for you. That was, we'll start with the race. That was breathtaking finish, wasn't it? How stressful was it for you?
Oh, incredibly stressful. I'm not gonna lie. After my crash at the start, a few laps in, it put me right to the back. I had loads of suspension damage. I had to pit. I thought that was it, game over. But luckily for these cautions, it allowed me to get back to the back of the pack, unlap myself, and then go at it again. But yeah, that was pretty nuts, to be fair.
I was going to say, not only with the progression through the race, but there were people falling off, hitting each other left, right, and centre right at the end there as well, wasn't there? And you managed to win it by, God knows what the time was, but by half a nose. Did you even know that you'd taken the victory?
No, to be fair, I was watching the clock and seeing it count down. I was waiting to see for when it got to the last lap because I was gonna come away from the middle of the track where I was holding it and sort of come down towards the inside so that I could fend anyone off. But then I looked up and realised it said leader was on last lap and we crossed the line. So I hadn't clocked that whatsoever, to be fair.
Was it a baptism of fire almost, this NASCAR championship for you? Is it a lot to learn? So had you raced ovals and NASCAR before?
I'd never done NASCAR before, so that's something a little bit different. But no, it was great fun, to be fair. Absolutely loved it. Probably the best championship yet. So yeah, absolutely loved that.
Well, brilliant. And I'm guessing you would say that because, of course, even though it's your first ever NASCAR championship, you have taken the inaugural VRRC Special Event NASCAR trophy, whatever you want to call it. You are the champion of the last 3 weeks. And I have to say, it was very impressive. I'm not entirely sure where you were going into tonight because everybody was in with a shout of taking the victory, to be honest. But were you even hoping and dreaming that that was going to be a thing when you stepped into your sim this evening?
No, to be fair, I thought Ethan was going to win it. I was fourth, I think, in the driver's stand before this, so I was just going out to win the race, just to have a bit of fun. But yeah, somehow I've managed to put it on top. So it's just, I suppose, where Andy and Carl and Ethan finished. But yeah, I wasn't expecting that whatsoever.
Well, I think just from what we can see on our championship standings, the biggest gap between two places is between yourself and second place, who is actually a tie. And I'll leave that to say who's tied for second place when we bring up the graphic in a couple of minutes' time. But a massive congratulations, Joel. It's been brilliant to watch you and everybody else out in the VR, out in the NASCAR, learning your trade. Will we be seeing you in the GTV3? A little bit different, obviously, but I'm sure we'll see you at the front end if you're participating.
Oh yeah, as always. But yeah, look
Fantastic.
forward to it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Joel, and congratulations on the championship.
Nice one, appreciate it.
Right. I suppose, Lewis, I don't know if we've got ready to bring up the championship standings or not, but we might as well. We've already chatted about it quite a lot with Joel there, if we can bring it up. There we go, in fact. So, Joel Lask with 61 points. He wins ahead of Kyle Felvers and Andy McEwan. I don't know if Andy is still with us or anything like that, but second place in the championship, well, tied second place with Kyle Felvers, Andy. We've watched Kyle plenty of times and talked about him plenty of times over the last year or so as well. It must be pretty pleasing for you to be sort of with him on points. We know how quick he is.
Yeah, it's daft really, because I know it's only a fun championship and I know it's discipline of racing I've done a bit more of than these guys, but there is something slightly surreal about seeing my name up there with Kyle and Joel and Ethan and Nikki. So yeah, really quite pleasantly surprised to be up there. And it's funny though, immediately the competitive side of my brain starts thinking that I was half a tenth away from winning that race, and I think that might have won me the championship.
Well, it's addictive, isn't it? And that's why drivers keep coming back. Even in the sim world, you get that sort of addiction, don't you?
Oh yeah, the best phrase I've ever heard to describe sim racing is that the cars and tracks may not be real, but the racing is. It doesn't matter that we're not out there the real world Michigan or driving a real world stock car. It doesn't matter. The level of competition is insane. And I've had the real pleasure over the last few weeks of experiencing what a talented group of drivers we've got here at the VRRC. And it's been a real pleasure to be out there on track with them.
Yeah, trust me, when you crash in a real car as well, it hurts a whole lot more than crashing in a virtual one. So it's not all
Speaking from
sunshine and
experience
rainbows.
there, are you, Jack?
Oh, yes, not all sunshine and rainbows, ladies and gentlemen, to be a racing driver. The rest of the, we'll round out the rest of the top 10 as well. Ethan Hill in 52 points, actually drawing with Nicky Taylor in the end, of course, who ended up, I think, glitching out of the server, or out of the circuit, at least, unfortunately. He was leading the championship going into tonight. If anybody was wondering what happened to him, he finished in 5th position. Elliot Dalton Ayres was in 6th, with Paul Laramie in 7th, John Jones in 8th. And, well, it round out the top 10, even though you can't see it, is Josh Martin in 9th place and Oliver Gibson in 10th. And I have to say, there is one driver who we're really not used to seeing outside the top 10. It's Eric Axelson. He ended up in 11th. I think he'll be particularly a driver who'll be glad to see the back of the NASCAR series. Right. What have we got coming up in the next few weeks? Well, we're back to business as usual in terms of our main championships. We've got Rich Hayden in the commentary booth. I'm going to pass you over to him to have a chat about what's coming up and obviously in the time attacks as well. Rich, take it away.
Hello, everyone. So we've that was a fantastic final race. Hopefully, I gave you one of the most impressive crashes. That was a lot of fun, and I am very pleased to say that myself and Mr. McEwan are working on bringing a full NASCAR championship. So it's been that good fun, and everybody's enjoyed it so much that we're putting together a championship. So watch this space. We will be announcing something very soon. But other than that, as you said a couple of times, so we move on to the GTV3 Championship. So we've got a week off. Next Wednesday, we are not broadcasting because round 1 is the week after. So the practice server will go live next week for these guys that are rearing to get out in these cars on the track. So really looking forward to that. But we've also got a time attack going on at the moment. This week, ending on Friday, is the Fiat Abarth AC at Vallelunga. And then we're going to move on to the Audi TT Cup car at Oschersleben. Easy for me to say. For round 2, and then we move on to the mini JCW mini challenge car, and then we end off that first front wheel drive time attack with the Cooper TCR at Valencia. So looking forward to that. Can't wait to do the Cooper at Valencia. And then we announced last night that we're going to do our next special event, which comes on at the end of GTV3, which will be a 6-race, 3-round truck racing championship. So really looking forward to that. Something different as well. What we're trying to do is trying to do different things in the special event. So the NASCAR has been, as we know, has been really good. Everybody's enjoyed it. So we're going to do something on that, and we're going to trial trucks as well in April. That'll be. So lots going on.
Yeah, that's. I'll tell you what, that is quite a lot of information that I didn't even know as well. Actually, considering, if we're talking about the NASCAR as a proper series, that'll be very exciting. So this little teaser that we've had over the last 3 weeks is a sign of more things to come, hopefully. And of course,
Absolutely,
we'll be for any information on the next special event, which obviously you just mentioned is the trucks. They can find that on the VRRC Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and everything else. I'm guessing as well.
Yeah, go to our website, Racing with VRRC on the website. All the information's on there, and also there's a link there to join the Discord. You'll get most information through our Discord channel. But yeah, if you want to get involved, that's the way to do it.
Fantastic. Right, I think it's about that time that we round out the evening, and as a result, the championship. A massive thank you to everyone who has tuned in, watched, given their support, commented, liked, or just silently sat there and judged us, our driving and commentating abilities. It's been a pleasure to be your host for the last 3 weeks. A massive thank you to Lewis Edwards, who's jumped into the commentary box for the first time ever, while still doing his broadcasting job and doing it to a top degree of standard as well. And of course, Mr. McEwan, who has not only delivered his lovely dulcet tones, as he usually does so professionally over the course of the evenings, but also given us an awful lot of entertainment out there on track. It's been brilliant to watch him try and teach a thing or two to these VRRC drivers. That's all we have time for. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the GTV3 Championship. Good night.